Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best summons and familiars in Baldur's Gate 3. So some of these can make battles really easy. Something like the Mage Hand in particular has a lot of utility because it can throw things for you, whereas some others are nice because they're just bonus actions. I'll be covering all of the best ones in this and talking about a few that aren't on this list as well, because there's a ton that we can get in Baldur's Gate 3, and I really like the summons and how they work. But first off, we have Mage Hand. Mage Hand is actually a pretty useful summon because if you're running with a cold or a lightning build where you need to have create water set up, you can actually drop water bottles on the ground and your hand can pick them up and throw them for you, which will apply wet to targets. Now, if there's any targets that are weak, or if there's any targets that are strong against cold, you can apply it with the water from the mage hand and it's going to deal double damage to them, so that's really good. And also if they're just regular damage resist to cold, this is goated for that reason alone. I'm going to put it in the A tier because it can also throw health potions to the ground and heal your team. It's an underrated one, and the Gith Yankee and the Arcane Trickster Rogue get a special mage hand that's invisible, so that's really nice as well. If you play as a Gith Yankee, you get that once per short rest, so very useful. Next, we have Flaming Spear. Now, this requires a concentration. I don't think any of the, none of the others require concentration, which makes it a little bit worse in that regard, because if you have Flaming Spear, you can't cast something like Hold Person or really any other concentration. So, Flaming Spear, for that reason, it's good because it's an early game level 2 spell, so it could be like a B tier, somewhere around there maybe, because early in the game you can also get Heat Metal, which is a concentration, which is better damage than the Flaming Spear, so I think I want to put in the C tier, but it's not as bad as it seems. It's just the concentration really brings it down a lot. Next we got Animate Dead, and this is actually a pretty good spell for just in general. If you have a Cleric or if you have an Oathbreaker Paladin, you can get this, and it's extremely useful. Also, the Necromancer Wizard, if you select that at level 2, you can select this at level 5, but at level 6, the Necromancer Wizard gets it for free. The Spore Druid gets the much more powerful Fungal Infestation, which has some different uses I'll get into. But Animate Dead is really good. I would say it's an A tier one. It allows you, if you're a Necromancer Wizard, you can summon 2 for the price of 1 corpse, which is also huge. And it's just nice to have extra bodies around to take hits for your team, because they're going to have an armor class that's like 8. It's going to attract everyone's attacks towards them, so they take hits for your team. And that is actually really useful, so I'm going to put them in the A tier. Next, we have Goodest Boy Scratch. Scratch is an easy S tier. I think that it's Scratch is just, you have to get him if you're a dog lover or not. Scratch is just cute and nice to have on the team. You can throw his ball. There's actually some interesting dialogue that you can get around Scratch too. I think that he's just a great one to have. Not the most useful in combat, but still, hey, it's Scratch. I have to put him in the S tier. S stands for Scratch. Next, we got the Wrath. This is in Act 2. You get a Moon Lantern that can summon these. They have like 24 health. They're not super tanky, but the only way you can damage them is with like radiant damage, so they get a pass for that. I think that they're like a B tier, I guess. You can only get them in Act 2. Similar, there's some that can only be gotten in Act 1, but for the time that you get them, they only deal necrotic damage, which is what everything else pretty much resists in Act 2. For that, I might move it down to C tier, just because their damage type is necrotic and it doesn't do a whole lot in the Shadowlands. Next, we have the Summon Flesh Golem. This is another Act 2 exclusive. You get this from Balthazar in the Shar Temple. It's pretty good. It's a freaky flesh golem. I'm going to put in the B tier for the design of the enemy alone. It's it's pretty freaky. It has like a skull for a face. It is really strong too, extremely powerful, but you can only get it in a certain area, similar to the Wrath. So that brings them down a little bit. If you could have that at all times, it would probably be S tier. But yeah, you can only use the Flesh Golem in the Shar Temple. Next, we have Spiritual Weapon. This is an easy S tier. So this has gotten really early in a cleric's spell book. It's a level 2 spell, and it uses a bonus action. And that's where it gets really big, because Healing Word is a nice cleric heal that you can get. It's a level 1 spell that you can get. It uses your bonus action. That's the main use for a cleric. So if a cleric doesn't have a use for their bonus action, Spiritual Weapon's a great choice. And it will also draw aggro. It has 20 health, and it has a lower armor class, so enemies will end up attacking it, which is, again, nice, because your team's not going to get hit. So S tier. Next, we have Lump's Horn. This summons the ogres from early in Act 1. They're brutal. I highly recommend getting the Intelligence Circlet from them, because They're gross. They do gross stuff. I'm gonna put it in the B tier, B tier, because they are really useful for when you can summon them. If you're going to like the goblin camp, just be sure to feed them after they attack, because they work for money, and yeah, you want to keep them happy. But also, if you summon them in and attack them afterwards, you can get the circlet of intelligence, which will set your intelligence to 17, effectively a 16 intelligence score, meaning you can scribe 4 wizard spells with that if you wanted to dip 1 level of wizard. So that's a nice option for your spellcasters. Next we have this is the summon Connor. I forget something of loss, a staff. I forget what it's called, but Connor's actually pretty useful because he's resistant to like all damage types except for he can resist 2 attacks basically. So if you don't attack him with radiant damage, he's going to survive 2 turns, making him pretty tanky. I want to put him in the A tier. It's a sad story and a sad conclusion to the story, so very useful, but just I encourage you to do that in Act 1. It's part of the main story. I would say you want to go and visit the hag, so yeah, A tier. Next we got the Guardian of Faith. This is pretty good. It has 60 health, and it'll attack any creatures that come near for 20 damage, and it loses that much from its health. But I would say the best use for this is it's a cleric spell at level 4. The cleric doesn't have a lot of level 4 spells. I would say for that alone it goes in the A tier because there is a unique way you can make this better. If you have a Globe of Invulnerability user, so let's say you got someone that's a full caster and they take the Circle of Intelligence, they can cast Globe of Invulnerability with it doesn't require your intelligence stat. So if you put a Globe of Invulnerability around the Guardian of Faith, it'll actually attack and not lose its health. So bonus, they kind of go together. But yeah, it's good because it's an extra unit on the battlefield to take hits for your team, and it'll dish out damage, and pretty good damage at that. So it goes in the A tier. Next, we have the fungal zombies. I would say that these are a high A tier, a bit better than Animate Dead. So you get a special thing called a fungal charge that allows you to cast those, and you get 4 of them. Now, what's best about these fungal zombies is if they take out an enemy, it'll bring up another zombie. So you can have these attack people, and it'll keep raising more zombies for you, which is a nice addition to that. So it's a little bit better than Animate Dead. They're not the strongest, but they're there just to take hits for your team and deal a little bit of extra damage for you. So I would say they're A tier. The Spore Druid is an incredible druid class, and I highly recommend giving it a shot. Next, we got the Conjure Woodland Being, and this one's going up into the, I'd probably say something like that. What's good about the Conjure Woodland Being is, 1, it allows you to summon it in the Wood Woad, which has higher health and can damage enemies for you as well, and it has 2 uses of Entangle. But also, the Dryad Woodland Being here has the ability to cast Spike Growth. So if you're a druid, you get this at level 7, and with this, it brings a lot of utility because if you were usually casting Spike Growth for crowd control, you can now delegate that to your summon, making it definitely the best summon that we covered here. Druids are a very powerful class. I really like playing as a druid, so high S tier. Next we got the Twisting Vine. This actually used to be pretty bad because it didn't have health. It got taken out in 1 hit, and it was an action. Now it's a bonus action and it has a good amount of health, so it actually goes into the A tier. It'll grab and target and pull it towards it, so this can be good for positioning, especially if you're doing something like a druid with cold spells. I just did a video guide on a ice Arctic druid, so you can check that out if you want to see a good use for that, because it can grab enemies together and you can pull them into a group and do a cone of cold or something like that. So very useful, but it used to be a lot worse, so I'm putting it in the A tier. Conjure Elemental. This goes in the high S tier. So you get 8 different options. So there's a level 5 version and a level 6 spell slot version. The level 5 is the Water Elemental. They're called Elementals. The level 6 are Myrmidons. I think that the Water Elemental and the Water Myrmidon are 2 of the best because they can apply the wet status on targets. So the Water Elemental on its main attack will apply wet, and then you can deal double damage with your cold and lightning spells. You can also get the Air Myrmidon, which will stun the target, and if you're a Moon Druid, you can turn into an Air Myrmidon too, and you can have 2 of them continually stunning people. So extremely useful, very, very nice. Even if you're going with the level 5 version, the Fire Elemental is great. The Earth Elemental is probably the second best because the Earth Elemental can knock people prone, but the Water Elemental is definitely the best because of the synergy with Create Water. Now, this is just super useful. I could talk about it all day, but we're going to get into the Minor Elemental next. I think the Minor Elemental is also an S tier. because you can summon in ice methods, which if you attack with water elemental, the water elemental also gets a teleport. So bonus action teleport, punch them to set up water. Then you can have the minor elementals go in, deal chromatic orb damage, frozen breath damage, or you can make the frozen elemental, the ice elementals explode, and it'll have double damage from this. So all three of these work together. And if you're a druid, you get all three of those. Or I guess four, because the woodland being has two. So yeah, these are really great. I might even put the woodland being below the major elemental. It's something like that. Yeah, I would say. Next we got create undead. This is pretty good too. I don't know if it's good enough to put in the S tier, but it creates a mummy. It's a level 6 spell. Actually, you know what? We'll play ball with it. There's a Crypt Lord ring that you can get in Act 3 that allows you to cast this for free. A ring that gives you a free level 6 spell. It's pretty good, honestly. The mummy that you get is high health. It could go A tier or bottom of the S tier. I'm going to put it there because I actually really like this spell. I always have it up. Someone always wears that ring because a free level 6 necromancy spell is huge. And it's relatively easy to get in Act 3. Next we got the summon. I want to treat, these are Pact of the Chain. The imp is okay. It deals poison damage, which I'm actually going to put it probably the imp in the F tier just because the Quasit outclasses in every way. And I'm going to pretend that this is shovel or fork, whatever you named it, or basket, shovel, fork, one of those names you picked for it. It's a cheeky Quasit, and what it does is it applies surprise to targets, giving you a free turn and extra damage. So the Quasit is an S tier choice. The Quasit is extremely powerful, and I highly recommend that you get it in Act 1 because the interactions that you get with it are really funny. Easy S tier. Next we have Planar Ally, and actually I'll probably move that there. Planar Ally is the best cleric spell, level 6 spell slot. And you can summon in, the Diva is the best because it gets free Revivify, and it also deals a ton of damage with its mace, and it can fly around. But the Cambion or Genie are also good too. The Genie does the Drunken Breath, which is pretty nice, and it can jump around pretty quickly. But I think the Diva is probably the stronger option. I'm going to put this one up in the high S tier. Planar Ally is extremely powerful, and I highly recommend if you have a cleric, take it to level 11 just so you can get this spell. I could talk about this all day because it's such a useful spell, and clerics get it so late, but extremely useful. Next, we got the Ranger Companion. The Ranger Companion is pretty good. The Crow is oddly enough the best option. If you go with the Beastmaster Ranger, you get a pretty powerful one. Actually, it might take Create Undead down. Scratch is going to stay there, but we're going to put the Ranger Summon somewhere here-ish. What's nice about the Ranger Summon is it can summon in another one, so you can have two of them up. The Bears are good too. I think the Raven's the best though because it can apply a blind to targets, which is extremely powerful of a status. So finally we got Find Familiar. They're there for utility mostly. Like the cat can fit into small areas, which is really nice, but the Find Familiar is just weak. It doesn't get a lot of health. I still take it as a level 1 spell, and because it's level 1, I'm going to put it in the A tier because early on, this just will draw aggro for your team. So I think that has its own use, and I'll put it in the A tier because of that. You can also turn into like a spider to create web surfaces and light those on fire, so you have a lot of synergy with other builds. Now, one that isn't on here is the Danse Macabre. What that does is it summons in 4 ghouls that just attack at random. You don't have to select them. They will attack for you. This is from the Necromancy of Thay, and if you're a Necromancer, I highly recommend getting that spell because it's just super useful to have, and yeah, it's fun to have that many summons because you can have, if you're a wizard, you can have your Conjure Elemental, you can have 2 Minor Elementals, you can have a Summon, a Find Familiar, you can have your Create Undead, you can have Create Undead and Animate Undead, you can have a Fire Spear, you can have the Danse Macabre, and if you're a Necromancer, you summon double with your Create Undead spells, so you can get a lot of summons in Baldur's Gate 3. I think like 11 is a pretty easy cap, and then you can get 15 with the Danse Macabre, so yeah, that is pretty powerful, and those are what I think to be the best summons ranked in Baldur's Gate 3 on this tier list. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below. I appreciate the view, and I'll see you all in the next video.